Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, we can achieve. I hold the vision of clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all mankind. We can create peace and harmony. We can live in alignment with nature. We are simply out of bounds right now. Plastic crap from China, and plastic is a petrochemical byproduct. Petrochemical byproducts are in agribusiness. It's what makes the chemical pesticides stick to the plants. It's also petrochemical byproducts are in pharmaceutical drugs. Rockefeller medicine, Rockefellers are the oil men, and we trade in the petrodollar. So we're living in an oligarchy. In this election year, this is why I run my own show, my own platform. So I nominate myself for president of planet Earth. And I've done that for the last 8 years. And if you didn't get the memo, I won. So I'm currently president of planet Earth. And you can't run against me unless you run against yourself. My partner over here, Barbero, partner in crime, he and I went to the Czech Institute together. Oh. And so he's my business partner now. And okay. I like working with Czech practitioners. Paul has about 65,000 students, and they're all educated on holistic health and how the sunlight and the minerals and the microbes in the soil and all that make up nutrition. Like he's very deep, and he's got the spiritual component, but he's the top strength training coach in the world. He developed strength training programs for the Swiss ball, which I'm standing on in my book. And then he took, when he started teaching core function about 30 years ago, he took the All Blacks in New Zealand from 48 injuries to 2 injuries in 1 year.
Moly.
And wrote strength training programs for the Chicago Bulls before they started winning in the 90s. So,
what's his magic formula? Like, what is there something unique and special about his strength training programs, or?
It's holistic, completely. So he goes into the gut. His wife is a biochemical paleontologist. She went to Cambridge and studied biochemistry from an anthropological point of view. And so they broke down the kind of Paleolithic mentalities around eating and our gut microbiome, and it takes 100,000 years to change the human genome 0.1%. So we're all basically hunter-gatherers. And so the core has nerve plexus to the organs. And if we're not getting the proper blood supply, or they're inflamed because of gluten or glyphosate or any of these other things, and the guts are blown out, then you're going to throw out your shoulder, your hips, your knees. Wow. And so he's dealing with multi-million-dollar athletes, and nobody can fix them. And so governments call for their Olympic athletes, and they're like, Paul, can you fix this guy? And he's like, well, is he pooping? You know,
how is he pooping? What does it look like?
Can you get him a colonic? And then problems start changing right away.
So they analyze the fecal matter.
I'm just using,
or are they just using that as a gauge of health?
I'm just using one example that he gave us in the classes that I took from him. Another example was a woman was having anal sex with her husband, and she was trying to please him, and she had back pain, and it wouldn't go away, and all the therapists in his office had a try with her, and then finally Paul fixed her. So Paul, you call Paul when nobody else can fix it. And he has rehabbed more medically retired athletes to the tune of multi-million-dollar careers than anyone I know on planet. And so he worked on Kobe's Achilles, which is his last injury, Laird Hamilton's hip replacement, Danny Way's broken neck in '94, Rhino Ryan Hughes and Robbie Madison, the motocross daredevils and champions, spinal cord injuries. And doctors said, you'll never walk again, you'll never ride a motorcycle again. And they go out of his office and break world records. And
oh my God.
Yeah, he's the real deal. Paul
That's
Check.
why, has he done anything, have you had any issues that he fixed? Because I know that your story goes back to having gut issues back in, you were a model and you obviously had to work on your physique. Like, did the path take you into something that you learned from him that helped your own body, other than just holistic knowledge to help others?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, basically the book is a representation of 7 years later after starting to study with him. I culminated everything. My big dream was to have the ripped at 50, you know, to be shredded, standing on the ball, you know, the whole thing. And because I started out in front of the camera as a Versace model. And so after I studied with Paul, I was studying herbalism and fasting and all these things to try and help my gut and health and be in front of the camera and have a good career, looking and feeling my best. And so when I studied with Paul, he helped me put it all together, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, fundamental principles, non-negotiables. You know, we need sunlight, right? It's the
Yeah.
source of all life on planet Earth.
Yeah.
We're electromagnetic, so it's a good idea to be grounded. And so hydration, sleep, the body needs sleep, the body needs movement. And these are all non-negotiables. And people are trying to watch like 3 hours of Huberman Labs and like, oh my God, all this science. And then
72 requirements for the day, starting at 4 a.m.
And these are just basic fundamental principles, right? That we don't need reams of data and science to know that we need sunlight, that we need sleep, that we should sleep inside of the celestial realm, the sun and the moon. And our hormones are harmonized to the celestial realm. And you know, just basics. We've always known these basics, but we've gotten so far away from it because of all the research bias and data information overload. And that's by design, by the way, as well, information overload. If you want to weaken a human being, just load them up with a bunch of ideas and confuse the hell out of them. They don't know which way to go. What do I eat? What do I drink? When do I go to sleep? And that's what we have in the world today. 70% of the American people are obese or overweight. Well, if you listen to Dr. Jack Kruse, we're also looking at all the blue light flickering coming out of the machines, right? And the mob was onto this with the slot machines.
No way.
Of course. There's a great video with Dr. Jack Kruse where he talks about meeting RFK and they compiled data. It's all on decentralized medicine. It was posted, I think, last year. It's great how it breaks it down because the mob was into getting the money out of people from gambling.
Sure.
And so the blue light would flicker and it would put them in a hypnotic state.
Yeah, like, oh, wow.
And then they plied them with alcohol and then they just gave up the money much easier. Just emptied their
perfect
pockets.
pairing, right? Yeah, but they do say like blue light versus the red light. Like at night, take the blue light down because it wakes you up. But also alternatively in the morning, it helps you wake up. So it's not always the worst, but at night it's the worst.
Well, and non-native blue light is a completely different situation when you're looking at frequency and vibration.
What is native then?
What comes out of the sun.
So blue light still comes out of the sun?
Correct.
Okay. At different times of day. It's stronger red light at some points versus blue?
Well, blue light is when you go out in the day. It's just, it's completely bright. You see, we were just at the Grand Canyon, and when the sun went down, it was completely red. When it came up, it was completely red.
Yeah, yeah. Which is why, like with the red light, let's say, they say to usually use it to set your circadian rhythm use the red light, especially if it's winter, times like that when you can't get outside as easily. Best to go outside into the real light, but otherwise to use the red light first thing and then like sunrise, sunset, to sort of set your body's clock.
To reset your circadian rhythms. And actually, I wanted to bring new collaboration coming up with Raw Optics, which they were aligned with Dr. Jack Kruse and Rick Rubin, who also wears these. These are raw optics.
Now that you say that, I love it. I mean, I love Egypt, so put anything Egyptian on it, and I'm like, I should probably have that.
And these are blue light blockers, high-level technology as far as blocking the non-native discordant frequencies. And so the red are actually for night. When you're watching blue light. I personally like wearing these in the gym because the fluorescent lights inside the gym. Exactly.
The worst.
Correct.
Like I think the quickest way to electrocute me dead with energy is to put me in a room with false light, like those yellow, awful overhead lights, like an office or a big building, like with no windows. I mean, you just take my energy and put it down to like 20%.
And staring at the screen all day long. And your posture's down.
Yeah.
You're eating garbage. Right? So these are called the Troy.
That's cool.
You see the insignia on the side?
Yeah, I do. That's awesome.
So the blue light's non-native. It affects our hormones. And we're so out of balance right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's going on?
Right. Well, let's talk about frequency, because even as I look at the cover of your book, you know, you have 432 hertz, 528 hertz, and you have sacred geometry. I'm like a big fan of sleeping to frequencies. So I'll sleep to 428, 432, 528, 741. One of those, any one of those, what are there, 9 or 11 frequencies that start at like 1? There's one for every 100, but I usually sleep in that sort of 4 or 5 range. Tell me about that, because I feel like one of the things too that, you know, I've dove into is the tuning frequency of 440 that they sort of adapted or adopted back in probably the 50s maybe or something, that 40s, 50s. And I think that it was because it was used in Germany as a tool to sort of mute the people when you tune music to 440 versus the natural resonance of 432. And then I think the Rockefellers introduced it here after that. What is your experience with frequency, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think Tesla said it best, to understand the universe is to understand frequency, vibration, and energy, right? Everything is energy. We are coalesced ideas or waves down into matter, right? And even the matter is, there's electrons and atoms, and you could actually, move through the matter. If you look at 99.99999, everything is space.
Empty space.
If we look at frequencies, and then you can look at the frequency of parasites, cancer, these things are very low level frequencies. And then Rife, created a device to heal the human body with frequencies. We all know how we feel when we're out in the woods, forest bathing. We just went to the Grand Canyon. I wanted to get a little reset, sleeping outdoors, having that red light. It's like sleeping with those frequencies like you're talking about, right? And trying to get away from the electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetic pollution that is all around us. We've got cell towers, we've got 5G towers, and RFK was suing the FCC when this first came out. There's been no tests on it, and these are discordant energies again, and so
sued them on EMFs or sued them on 5G.
Sued them on the 5G technology that they were about to release. This was back in 2019, before 2020, I do
and
believe.
Then in 2020, it was just a mad dash to upgrade everything to 5G or downgrade, or
and so a big part.
While we were all sitting inside.
Yes, exactly. And so
banning walks on the beach and hikes in the mountains.
Right.
Wild times.
Right. That's why I moved to Arizona, so I could just be outdoors all the time. And so a big part of my mission is to restore balance on the planet. My mission is to raise human consciousness and change all systems. My vision is clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all of mankind in my lifetime. And right now we're dealing with commercial conduits that are not beneficial for the human being. And a lot of the business that we do is about taking natural resources from other people, or Middle East. We got the oil, and I came out of the Amazon in 2006. I was working with an herbal company, and I was working with the Shipibo Indians, and I was drinking ayahuasca, and I realized I had a huge responsibility. And I would come out of the jungle and go into the city centers and see mountains of sawdust. And then I started studying John Perkins' work, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, understanding the way of the world with IMF and the World Bank does these, third world country loans, and then Halliburton and Bechtel come in and build infrastructure, dams, waterways, grid systems for electricity. And then they say, okay, time to pay the loans back. Oh, you can't pay them back? Okay, that's fine. Give us the natural resources and pull it out of the earth with a slave wage. And if you don't like that, then we send in the coup d'etats. So we saw that in Rwanda, where they armed both sides, both factions. They caused a little civil war against the differing tribes, and they gave them all machetes. And then if you don't play games, if you don't play with the economic hitman and do what we say, then we send in the American military. So you got Afghanistan was about a pipeline. Iraq was about the oil, right? Even though we said it wasn't. Right? This is the way of the world. And so John Perkins really outlines this. And I came out of the jungle going, shit, man, if I've got any power, anything in my soul, I'm here to change the world. And so this is what I do. Ultimately, the book is the cover. It has the frequency, the Schumann's resonance of the earth, which is aligned with our heart. It has the Fibonacci sequence, which you can see all in nature. It has the love frequency. And then on top of my head is 333, and that's just what resonates with me, which is the Trinity or the Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call that. And I do believe that, that's a mirror to humanity. That's what we are capable of, and we've just been turned off, right?
It's kind of what we are.
We are that, and the frequency has been changed, or the radio station has been changed.
Right.
I'm here to just awaken that spirit that's in all of us. And this is part of the whole great awakening. And it's not about me or my ego trip. I just know what's possible. And I'm calling it forth.
Because you felt it, you saw it, you embodied it within a ceremony?
And I know what's possible. Well, I had 3 very powerful visions. And
were they all in ceremony?
Yes. And one,
ayahuasca?
Yes. Mm-hmm. One was of my daughter, and she was my second child, and I wasn't married when I was down there as well. Mm-hmm. So when I came back home, I found my partner. We started having a family, and my family's been unfolding ever since. And the second one I had was an amalgamation of my on-camera career. I started out as a Versace model about 35 years ago in Milan, and I started studying natural medicine and fasting and herbs at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then I was doing stand-up comedy at the time.
What?
And so the certified health nut was born in my mind. And that's been almost 2 decades now, so almost 20 years. And then I came out of the jungle with those visions, and YouTube.
So you were this was 20 plus years ago. So you were leading edge with the ayahuasca world and with ceremony stuff.
2006. I mean, let's face it.
That's a pretty long time ago, though. I mean, that was a while ago.
Yeah, I mean, Terence McKenna, I think, worked down there in the 70s and the 80s, and he brought some of the yellow ayahuasca back to Hawaii. I know that for sure. And then Dr. Richard Schulze, I think, was from Harvard, and he did research in the Amazon with ayahuasca in the 60s. And so I'm by no means a pioneer.
Yeah.
But I was down there right when YouTube popped up, and a lot of my early footage on YouTube is in the Amazon working with the Shipipo. Mm-hmm. And the final vision that I had, and Certified Health Nut's been unfolding and ever since. And the final vision that I had was that humanity makes it from the precipice of absolute fuckery that we're seeing all over the world right now.
Yeah. How are we going to do that?
Well, the first thing is to raise human consciousness and then call forth new systems. So the Wright brothers wanted to fly like an eagle, and everybody told them they were crazy. Even right before they started flying, there was another team, and the headline said that man will never fly. And we take it for granted right now. The Scottsdale Airport's right there. They land over my house every single day. Yeah. And so man will never fly, right? Nothing's impossible. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, we can achieve. And so that's from Napoleon Hill when he studied the industrial magnates of the early 20th century. And so dream the impossible dream.
I love that.
Steve Jobs wanted to put a handheld computer in every man's hand so they could change the world. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. And everybody called him crazy to the degree they took Apple away from him for over a decade. Mm-hmm. So raise human consciousness and call forth new systems.
Do you believe that if enough people raise their level of consciousness, that there is a inevitable transference of overall consciousness of mankind? Or do you think that it's going to be more of a split, kind of a new earth split, where there will be some that go on, some that don't?
Well, a dimensional shift, like, if you will. Mm-hmm. Sure, that's a possibility.
Have you heard about, there's a critical mass, like a percentage that needs to change their consciousness level? If enough people do, then it's, I don't know if it's like the 100th monkey theory. Yeah, exactly. Do you think it's going to be like that, or do you think that it's more individually, everyone has to do that on their own, or that you think that if we get enough people to do it, it'll affect everyone?
Yeah, I think the Bible says 144,000. I think we reach a certain level of critical mass.
I feel like we're there. 144,000, I feel like we're there. And maybe we are. Like, maybe that's what this is. Maybe that's why everything is so revealed and nasty, because it was always there, we just didn't see it.
Right. Yeah, and I think like Hurricane Helena, which just happened, I think these things are all catalysts of awakening. Luke Skywalker needs a Darth Vader, right?
How do you think the hurricane is a catalyst? Explain to me the thought process of that.
Well, it's going to awaken the human spirit.
How?
So all those people are suffering up there right now, and I hear that the mountain people of Appalachia are very strong and resilient. Also, you can see the clandestine issues that are happening.
Oh, you look at the situation and you look at the discrepancy between what money is sent overseas to other countries versus what's given to our own people here, and they have an opportunity to look like heroes and they don't. Like, it's like so blatantly obvious. But as you talk about the mountain people, it makes me think about the fact that these would be people that wouldn't engage in any of this stuff. They wouldn't be engaging in politics. They're just living their life, right? They're self-sustained for the most part. They're living in their communities, but maybe it will wake them up to do something about more of it, to get involved. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Well, they're already getting involved. They have no other choice.
Right.
I have friends that have boots on the ground. I've sent some money to some of my military special forces guys. They're up there working on getting supplies to people. Authorities, they're arresting people or threatening arrest.
Isn't that wild? And I've heard they've shut down some airspace too. And what is going on?
Well, this is a little bit, this is a macrocosm of the microcosm I experienced when I moved to Sedona, Arizona.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, small town, and they have some good American values. My children were in a very successful private school. They were in a Sedona Unified School District building for 6 years. They just got evicted, right? And there were some backhanded deals, some real estate deals, and the building was empty, I think, for almost a year and a half, 2 years that I was up there. It may still be empty. I don't know. I moved away. But when I interviewed the vice mayor for the election, it was up in 2022, I put him on my platform, on my YouTube channel, and I realized that they pimped Sedona out to these marketing companies in LA to get all these tourists there. And the people that were there were mostly retirees, small town.
Yeah.
And the traffic was horrific.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They allowed the ATVs to rip up that sacred land and create dust storms. And I worked with some of the ranchers that were out there, and they fed me some of the questions. There's a faction called ICLEI. It's the International Council on something environmental, and it's a globalist faction. And when I asked the vice mayor, it was voted in, and it was put into, their policies were put into the city of Sedona, which is incorporated. And I asked him if he knew anything about that. And he didn't know anything about it. And he'd been on the city council and vice mayor for
Does that happen?
like 10 years or so, something like that, 8 to 10 years. So he was in there when this was being voted on. He knew nothing about it, so he said. So here they are, they have globalist policies being baked into small town America. And then my children get evicted from a unified school district building with a successful school. They raised with bonds within a decade before that to build this middle school. And within 10 years, they had closed it down. Right. And the Airbnb situation got out of hand. So there was all these like backhanded, I don't know if it's really as clandestine as, maybe some of these globalist factions are operating, or if it's just greed, human avarice. I don't care. We just want to make money. It's all about business. But I thought that my children getting evicted from that school, I was like, golly gee, isn't this America? Don't we have like a bake sale or something like that? And like raise some money and get these children back into school. And no, it was nothing but buck passing. And when I asked him, he goes, oh, well, that's the school district. I'm vice mayor. I have nothing. I don't know anything about that. But boy, oh boy, if we want you to put on masks, we'll be well versed in that. We're well versed in DEI.
Well, I mean, that's a scary thing as a parent these days, I would think, in schools. Is everything from like critical race theory to DEI in the working world to, I think it's wild that there are places that are now banning voter registration cards, like actually not, like we don't want them. What's that? These are just crazy rules that you'd think that this globalist movement, it's almost like they tap into this idea of all for one, like we're all one. But the easiest way to control people is to just have there be one person in charge of everything and be able to mass manipulate. I know that's one of the dangers these days of, kids in schools, is that they go to school and 99% of professors are Democrats, and that they will push agendas and they will shape your child beyond what you would want. I was speaking to someone the other day, and he has 2 kids, and one of them is very far right and one's very far left. And they're both his children, but the difference is the one that's left went to college. It's wild.
Yeah.
Nature and nurture, but nurture plays a big role.
Well, I think this is a prime example of mind control, right? And so you've got Operation Paperclip, where they took all the Nazi scientists and even the Japanese scientists that were experimenting on human beings, and they brought them into NASA, the pharmaceutical companies, and the media. Then you've got Operation Mockingbird, where the media just repeats the same thing over and over again. This is television programming.
We've seen a lot of that in the last few years. The compilations that people put together where literally every single local channel says the identical same thing.
Yes. And then we've got the food pyramid, which was a complete lie, right?
I think Jordan Peterson said it best when it might be one of the biggest crimes against humanity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. How do you fatten up an animal? You stuff them full of grains.
Yeah.
And then acidosis, well, grains in multiple stomach animals creates acidosis in their blood. If you eat that, that's acidosis in your blood. That's one of the 3 main factors of cancer, right? So it's not that red meat's bad for you. It's sick animals, that's bad for you, right? And so it's layered too, because people think they're eating food, right? But if there's seed oils, it's cooked in seed oils, they're fed corn, they're fed soy. Like, what does that do to your tissues? Well, my mentor said results never lie. So let's look at our results. 74% of the American people are obese or overweight, and we have type 1, 2, and 3 diabetes now with dementia and it's not called dementia anymore, right? It's called Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And so, and then what are these grains? They're ultimately like sugar, right? Especially corn. And then you got corn syrup and you have all these fake sugars.
Oh, millions.
So we've got fake food. Then the tobacco scientists, because people got hip that commercial cigarettes were giving us big problems. And so they took all that money, R.J. Reynolds is invested in the food companies.
That's right.
And then everything's manipulated, and come to find out through Operation Mockingbird, the news has always been pay to play. It just doesn't look like that, right?
I feel like I learned that young because of the work I did and why I would be on television. Just like a small fraction of what gets on TV. I was like, oh, people don't just like go on a show because they're famous, or they're like, oh, I have a movie coming out, I have a show, I'm selling a product, I'm someone's advertising, which is what got me in, that's why I'm in the magazine, or that's why I'm on the show.
Yeah, as a model.
There's always a reason.
Oh yeah, as a model, it was very challenging for me because I have a real go-getter spirit, and I just saw it was gate-kept by homosexuals and.
Modeling?
Yeah.
Really?
It was. I mean, I had a friend, Simon Rex. He was successful. He's got a platinum record. He was on TV. He made movies. He's still making movies right now. And he said the fashion industry was the worst. And that's someone who's had success in the music industry, which we've all heard is quite scary. And we see the satanic worship going on right now. So it looks like all the media, and now what we see with Diddy, like this is the real game. Like how willing are you going to be to play the game? And I wasn't willing, right? I could navigate it to a certain degree. I had good genetics. I took care of myself so I can present myself on camera. But I just wasn't willing to play the game. And it just seemed like there was a lot of arrested development, infantile stuff, and sexual games, just real sexual innuendos.
Like, give me an example. Like, what kind of game would you not play?
For example, I had 4 Versace campaigns come out, and I actually, I pretty much moved myself in the right position. I was living in Milan. I was, doing my best to do my best there, and somebody said that Bruce Weber, who was a famous photographer, was down in Miami. So I went down to Miami and I really liked it. And this is when Miami was coming up on the modeling scene, mainly because Germany shot their catalogs down there because most people in Germany bought their clothing from catalogs. And so in the winter it's freezing in Germany. So they would go to these tropical places, and Miami really sprung up as a model haven. And there was a lot of work. Plus German catalogs pay good money. So Miami sprouted up. I went down there. I briefly shot with Bruce Weber, and I think there was a special on Bruce Weber. He got caught up in some of these Me Too movement kind of things. And I didn't have that experience with him. I just shot some Polaroids and never got a campaign with him. But I ended up staying in Miami, and then I became friends with my agent down there. And he was trying to move up. He went to Milan for the men's shows, and he's like, oh yeah, I like that. You know, you could tell he liked this and really wanted to put Miami on the map. And he had a friend who did real estate and helped Gianni Versace buy that property on Ocean Drive. And so he was instrumental in that deal. And then he negotiated to use his men, the Miami agency, for the next shoot. And so I was in a book called South Beach Stories, and I did 4 campaigns with them. I worked with Christy Turlington, Naomi Campbell. This is back in the 92, I think. Armani, Versace, that's pretty much, you know, as top as Dolce & Gabbana as you're gonna get. Other people that I would have big campaigns and extended careers and pages in Vogue and this, that, and the other thing. And then you would hear stories, oh, they slept with so-and-so, or they slept with so-and-so. And after a while—
And all homosexual stuff? Is that kind of what it took?
Yes. And after a while, you're like, oh my God, did any of these guys make it on their merits?
Right.
And so, and then drugs and alcohol were free. I was in Miami. I just kept on partying because I wanted to do my best, but I did my best, and then it kind of stopped like right there. Or ultimately the business was just the way it was. It wasn't that great. You make some money when you work, but most of the time, 95% of the time, you're not working.
Right. They distract you with the other stuff.
Right. And women are different, right? Women were making a lot more money. And there was also plenty of eating disorders with the women that I saw.
Sure.
And other type of party playboy dynamics. And so it's kind of an undercurrent.
So why do you think that the modeling or music or television industry ends up becoming so corrupt? Like what's the end game there? Why do they— it seems like they try and get people on film to sort of have leverage against them in some way.
Well, and the KGB operative, the journalist Yuri Brezmenov, talked about this in an interview in the 1980s, and he said there's 4 stages of it, and the first one is to demoralize people, right? So if you have no morals of right and wrong, up and down, gender, how about that? Gender.
Start there.
Right. And so if you can confuse people, you weaken them. And then if you go back to the Jack Kruse stuff that we're talking about with the flickering of the blue light and weakening people's immune systems and breaking them down, basically his theory is they want us all to have soft cancers. So we're taking the drugs, and this is in alignment with RFK and all his research as well. It's breaking down the system. And so whether you get maimed by childhood vaccines or glyphosate, because he sued, let's face it, he sued Merck for the MMR vaccine. He sued Gardasil for the HPV vaccine, and he sued Monsanto for glyphosate and won, right? He won $10 billion before they settled. And not only did they settle, but they moved over to Bayer. They merged them with Bayer, so the Monsanto name is buried. Right? And people will just forget like that because human beings are so programmable, and they're on to the next like war or problem or what we see on the news or the next boogeyman, right, that they present to us. And so highly programmable, psychological warfare. You also have, so I mentioned Operation Paperclip, Operation Mockingbird, and then you have MK Ultra, which they use psychedelics. And then
psychedelics are used in that. I knew it was like a mental reprogramming and almost used by trigger words, and they have a handler for them. It's a very Hollywood one, right?
A Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange
exemplified that.
Okay, but I didn't realize that psychedelics were.
They glued the eyes open and made him watch horror films on LSD. Right, it rewired his brain. And then Operation Popeye was in Vietnam, where they were seeding the weather to flood out the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Right, so this is all warfare. That was in the Vietnam War.
Seeding the weather, which is exactly what's happening.
Yes, I just pray to God. Right, I pray, and I pray for peace. I pray for harmony, because whatever the mind can conceive and believe, we can achieve. Right, that's the truth. I hold the vision of clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all mankind, because my mind works, I go to the etiology or the root of the problem and how to solve it. And I postulate that we can create peace and harmony. We can live in alignment with nature. We are simply out of bounds right now. Plastic crap from China, and plastic is a petrochemical byproduct. Petrochemical byproducts are in agribusiness. It's what makes the chemical pesticides stick to the plants. It's also petrochemical byproducts are in pharmaceutical drugs, right? Rockefeller medicine, Rockefellers are the oil man, and we trade in the petrodollar. So we're living in an oligarchy, a top-down situation. So my 4 major solutions, and this is a selection year, and every time the circus comes to town.
I love that, a selection year.
I like to
go off, by the way, because if you want to go on a rant, if there's one thing that's motivated me in the political realm, it is that I'm sick of seeing chemtrails, and I am sick of worrying if my food is poisoning me. And I can't, if I don't have a garden, I'm screwed, right? And even if I have a garden, this is the problem, they're flying over with bullshit flying out of their airplanes, landing on it. So I now can't run. I cannot run away from the problem anymore. So this is what motivated me.
Yes. And so in the selection year, this is why I run my own show, my own platform. So I nominate myself for president of Planet Earth. And I've done that for the last 8 years. And if you didn't get the memo, I won. So I'm currently president of Planet Earth. And you can't run against me unless you run against yourself, right? So I am for clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all mankind in my lifetime. My 4 major solutions, because even though it's got a humorous component to it, it's a real platform. And I'll go toe-to-toe with any politician. Because we have to speak outside of the controversial boxes, the normal ones of economy, which is important, and abortion, which is important, but it keeps us in this argumentative state. And
Guns, which is important, but right.
Right. So free energy, gift economy, self-care education, and permaculture. These are my 4.
Slow down.
I'm going to go through them.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I was like, hang on.
I'm going to go through them. So these are my 4 major solutions to save humanity. And so free energy. Nikola Tesla already invented it. The physicists were working on cold fusion in the 80s, and John Harrison was melting steel blocks at room temperature. So we have already been on the pulse of this, and whatever the mind can believe and conceive, it can achieve. So the Wright brothers wanted to fly like an eagle when everybody said they were crazy. So you speak into existence. You sound effects matter, right? It says this in the Bible as well. And so thought, word, action manifests in the flesh. We have to think outside of the box. And if you're in universities, you will get kicked out of school. And you may have a career that was invested in doing good in high school, doing good here, doing good, getting scholarships. And you're in a position, you start questioning existing physics that are all about oil and how the world functions with oil and the military-industrial complex that supports all of that, then you're going to get kicked out of school. So you have to think for yourself. And where's the funding and the money for that? Well, Nikola Tesla had that funding. J.P. Morgan was funding him. And when he said free energy, free, abundant, and safe, right? Wireless technology. And J.P. Morgan was like, how are you going to meter it? And he says, that's the whole point. It's free. You don't meter it. And so he burnt his laboratory down to the ground. So free energy, he was also screwing light bulbs into the Earth's magnetic resonance field. So there's energy
He was able
all
to
around
light
us.
town up through the ground. The technology ended up, it's like a ground electricity, right? And you're able to sort of like use one spot to charge and light the town, essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's documents on it. I don't know everything about him, but again, he's already developed this principle, and they burnt his laboratory down to the ground. I do believe Trump's uncle, when Tesla died, he got all his papers out of whatever New York City hotel he was living in, and he died in destitution as well. And he was on Tesla, I do believe, was on the Manhattan Project as well, or the Philadelphia experiment, one of the 2. Whatever is not nature was made in the mind of man first. Look at this light.
Yeah.
Right? Look at these cameras. Right? So whatever we can imagine, we can create. It just takes time. And so free energy, again, the physicists were working on cold fusion. So I don't care what you call it, however we harness the energy. And again, we can do it naturally. We can do it without raping and pillaging the natural resources. We can do it harmonically. So free energy, self-care education. When we teach children how to be their own doctors and to take care of their own real estate, we naturally take care of the real estate that is around us. There's only 4 human needs: water, food, shelter, and fire. We don't need plastic crap from China, right? We don't need that. Yes, there are some conveniences, and obviously these cameras and this technology allows us to be here. However, we can, again, I postulate that we can create this imbalance. And fire is represented by technology as well. And so these cameras and everybody's phone, that's running off electricity right now. So that is fire. And so those are the 4 human needs. And then how to take care of the human body. Again, the body needs to move. The body needs to sleep. The body requires water. It's mostly water. Should have some pure water unless you wanted a contaminated detoxification system. Your liver, your kidneys, your colon, it's going to get all gummed up with either garbage food or bad water. And so these are all fundamental principles. And the power that makes us is the power that heals us. And food is medicine, according to Hippocrates, who is the father of modern day medicine. And you have to take the Hippocratic oath to become a medical doctor today, which is do no harm. But pharmaceutical drugs have side effects. Side effects is a marketing gimmick. There are no side effects. There are toxic effects on the human body. And so we need to right all these wrongs, right all these inversions, come to our senses, come to clarity of mind.
Which is why they just repurpose some drugs for another reason. And they just call it something different because they're all effects. And they go, oh, we're going to choose this one to advertise.
Well, I worked in the Amazon. 42% of all drugs and 25% of all cancer drugs get their impetus from rainforest botanicals. So our plant medicines, they're already here, right? We already have access to that, but you can't make money patenting nature. They tried to do it with ayahuasca back in the 70s. And the natives erupted on that. Yeah. When you standardize, isolate, and synthesize plant terpenes, phytochemistry, then you can synthesize it and offer it on the commercial market and make money off of it. And what are our dominant industries? Oil, drugs, agribusiness, weapons, and banking. These are the industries, and the media keeps everything controlled, right? Self-care education, the body automatically heals itself. We're all-knowing, self-healing beings, but we've just been turned off through the programming and everything else, but we can elevate our consciousness. The yogis already did this. There's a great book called The Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. And you can find this on YouTube. It's about 9 hours. They sent scientific and government operatives over to the East to study human consciousness with the masters of the Far East that could walk through walls and be in...
Teleport?
They could teleport. And so there's a lot of...
View, all the things.
Right. And then this was studied by the American military, and it was exemplified in the movie Men Who Stare at Goats.
Oh.
And so, and again, this is intertwined with MK Ultra. And so if the mind is this powerful, so what can we do when we invert that? And we're living through that right now. So you've got free energy, you've got self-care education, permaculture. You drop a seed in the ground and it fruits. You hear about food forests. And so we can cultivate. There's been a lot of research by the American military. The British Soil Association.org has most of this data on there. Organic farming outperforms commercial extensively, and it's all been proven.
What does that mean?
Well, we're told that GMOs and commercial farming is here to feed the world, but there's still starving people. We throw away as much food as we make in the United States, and 1 in 4 children in Los Angeles, when I was living there, I knew this data, 1 in 4 children in Los Angeles are food deprived. And then are they even eating food if 74% of the people are obese or overweight, chronic disease, chronic childhood disease, diabetes, cancers, new turbo cancers? They studied Asian farms, Chinese and Japanese, and 1 acre and what it could produce. I think we needed like 8 acres to do this commercial farming. And how do we commercial farm? True organics is composting and fallowing, which is crop rotations.
Yeah.
This is also exemplified in Kiss the Ground, and there was another movie that was made recently. It's all about regenerative farming. And we can sequester the carbon in the atmosphere by growing certain plants, and it brings the carbon into the soil. The microbes and the grass-fed remnants. Joel Salatin, who was in the movie Food Inc. in 2007, he has a farm out in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, and it's called Polyface Farms. And so he is living example of how this can be done. Also, Alan Savory has a lot of research on soil. Dr. Zach Bush has a lot of information on soil, and it's very important that we start paying attention to the soil.
Well, they say we only have like 60 harvests left in the soil.
Correct. And so that's if we keep going the way we're going.
Let's just say it's even double that. That's still scary.
So I've seen the vision, humanity makes it. The final one is, my final solution is the gift economy. The Zulus in Africa coined the term Ubuntu. It means contributionism. And so when we get away from this Hunger Games type competition, right, all this nonsense that we're living, and we cooperate as they are in Appalachia right now, right, trying to survive.
That's right.
When we cooperate, we can create so much more magnificence. Now, if we are not at the top of the food chain and controlling the oil situation, the banking, et cetera, and we want to control the populations and manipulate the populations, then free people are probably not good for that equation. And so, but I truly believe that we can do this. We only need to speak it into existence. And I lived in California, and I've been talking about this for 2 decades, right? And people always say, oh, we're always going to burn oil and we're always going to use money. Well, you haven't studied currencies, because some currencies, they only last, 100, maybe 200 years maximum. And we are living in a fake currency, fiat currency land, right? It's all ones and zeros, and it's made up. There was only $660 billion worth of paper before 2008, and now there's trillions. And the difference between a billion...
You mean money, right? You're talking about money.
Correct. Paper.
Same thing.
The Federal Reserve only manufactured 660 billion pieces of paper before 2006, 2007. And then now we have trillions. So what does that do to our money in the bank? It's worth less.
Exactly. They're stealing from us. They're literally stealing from us.
Correct.
When they print money, they are stealing from you.
Correct. And so it's a house of cards, and it's waiting to fall. And currencies have collapsed in the past. I have a program that I work with, mainly men, called the Legacy Method, because man needs purpose. Otherwise, we'll go around in circles. And
do you mean man as men, or do you mean man as people?
Well, all together, but I predominantly work with men.
Yeah.
And so,
but when you say that, you mean all people need purpose, or are you saying specifically men in particular need purpose?
Yes, because our minds can cut through the fabric of reality. And if we don't have a direction to go in life, we can turn that in on ourselves with anxiety and create ulcers inside of our stomach, right? Or you're Robbie Madison, my friend that jumped Caesar's Palace with his motorcycle because he had a vision. And so you can cut through the fabric of reality. I know other extreme athletes, and they just want to go faster and faster, and they break records. And so whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve, it can cut through the fabric of reality.
That's right.
And so so if we don't know who we are and we don't know what we're doing, then anywhere we'll go, and you can just start popping pills and chugging alcohol and kill the pain, right? And go around in circles. I don't know what I'm doing. Like a pinball machine. Whoop, whoop, beep, boop, whoop, whoop, whoop. Well, the news says this, and the news says that, and I should be vegan. I should be carnivore. Let me watch the Huberman Labs and figure out, how much science I need just to get a good night's sleep. And this is what we have, is just turned off human beings. So I'm here to turn people on. Boop. Turn those lights on. What do you want from your heart's desire? The research that I've done is that all human beings want peace at the heart level. Okay, so if that's the case, we don't have much peace in the world right now. So let's start calling it forth. And how can I create peace in my own heart? And what is it that I truly desire? What is it that my heart desires? And if I want to achieve that, then I'm going to need my health. And it's a good idea to align myself with the circadian rhythms. It's a good idea to find and source pure water. It's a good idea to vote with my dollars, because if I don't vote with my dollars on the farmers that are out there right now, then there's not going to be any food left for me and my children whatsoever, because they're poisoning everything. And then it's a good idea to move my body. And it's a good idea to talk about these ideas, because people are programmed and they're turned off. So I use my voice. I use my God-given voice. I use my platform to share and inspire enough to have this dialogue.
So if people are listening, more than likely, they already have enough of a motivation to do these things. What I'm really curious about is how you take the people that have no idea, right? Because that's what it takes. If somebody's interested in listening and they're still listening right now and they're following your stuff or my stuff, like they're into health, they're into taking care of themselves. They might not know exactly how to do it, but they'll figure it out. They'll keep getting better at it. It's the people that have absolutely no idea and don't think it matters at all, and don't even entertain, like this sphere of information is just ridiculous. It's like there's no curiosity for it whatsoever. And so I'm always curious how you infiltrate or inspire or sort of just like blow their mind up a little. Like, what does it take to wake them up a little bit? What does that take? Is it the Hurricane Helene in the mountains? Is that what you mean? Is it, what can we each do? Because I live this hope too, but I don't know how to affect someone that doesn't want to listen.
The biggest thing that anyone can do is become the change they wish to see in the world. So if you want a healthy world, become healthy yourself. The cover of the book represents that, as above, so below. How do you expect, which is the natural law of correspondence, natural law, right? There's 7 components of natural law. As above, so below. How do we expect the world to be healthy or sane if we are not healthy ourselves, if we are not balanced, right? There's 2 forces guiding everything: yin, yang, masculine, feminine, inhalation, exhalation, catabolic, anabolic. And all the ancient sages have said, walk the middle path, balance. So finding our way back to balance as much as possible in this imbalanced world. So hold the bar high, be as healthy as you can. I mean, you are an amazing specimen. I talk to a lot of people, right? I go out to some public events as well. People are not healthy right now. I even go to, yoga festivals and stuff like that. And people are not healthy, right? And so
and these people want to be, right?
They do want to be healthy, but they're lost back to the demoralization, the disconnection, the programming of ideas, because mind is an embodied process. We are the sum total of our ideas. So people telling you what to eat, what to drink, all these things, and that are completely out of balance, and the news reports are saying that this is okay, or people are selling Doritos on these chemicalized foods. It's not so much junk food and ultra processed foods. It's these chemicals that store in our tissues and that make us sick and fat.
Sure.
And so people are programmed like, it's not bad. It's a little bit not going to hurt you, and everything in moderation. Well, not that stuff, right? That's like
well, you're adding or reducing your health at all times.
Holding the bar, high, at least for yourself. People are so addicted to gadgets, gimmicks, and drugs right now, because they're selling hormone replacement, testosterone replacement, like your manhood. You got to get a subscription for it, right? And so, but this is all normalized, right? And so,
don't you think we live in a world though that is so inhibits our own natural ability to operate properly, that almost supplementation might be needed at this point, whether it's through herbs, and I know you're an herbalist and I want to ask you about that, but through that or some level of modern medicine, additives. I mean, we can't, I'm putting element in my water because I'm like, look, it's not water without something in it, right? Otherwise it's, at best it's reverse osmosis and I add something because it's nothing water until I do that. But I mean, it just seems like in this day and age, the food is not nutrient dense anymore. Like back in the day, you used to look at what an apple would look like and it was super tiny and probably packed full of nutrients and minerals for you. Now the apple's this big and has probably a quarter of the nutrients, and you have to eat that much sugar just to get a quarter of it. So like we're starving for nutrition. And so it's like we almost can't get it naturally anymore.
Well, that's why I work with superfoods and herbs. We got so away from nutrition, people forgot about herbalism. You have to remember 100, 150 years ago, there was no pharmacies. Our do-it-yourself was whatever was out in the bush. Get some nettles, get some chamomile, make a tea. This was normal. Or make an alcohol tincture, a mash of these plants. And so you go to the Amazon, that's what they're still using. They're still using the plant medicine down there. You go to the markets in the middle of the jungle, and they have alcohol mash of roots and barks. And they're antifungal and they're antiparasitic, antibacterial. They have reverse transcript inhibition. Cat's claw is prime example. Anti-cancer plant. Everybody knows that. Unyidagato. And so we just got so far away from that, and these are nutrient-dense materials. And so the father of modern-day medicine said, let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. And so herbs and superfoods, the definition of a superfood is just something that's nutrient-dense. Like wheatgrass, for example, has packed nutrients, especially if you can find it. There's good companies. There's a handful of good companies out there, and we must support them, in my humble opinion. People that are doing regenerative farming. They're working with the soil, and they're working with high quality, high vibrational plants. I knew Rick Scalzo from Gaia Herbs. I think he sold it recently, but he had a farm in North Carolina. Now he's farming down in Costa Rica, and he's bringing these plant tinctures to the world.
Well, you can pay for your health now, or you can pay later. And now it tastes a lot better, and later it's a lot more painful.
And let me tell you, being in the fashion industry, I've witnessed a lot of people
I bet at this point
didn't stop partying.
Because you're how old now?
I'm 58.
Right. Give me an example of what happens to somebody if they get into their 50s and they haven't taken care of themselves.
It can be a slippery slope downhill fast, right? And so once you get cancer, that's a lifestyle overhaul. It's not a pill that you take or a juice fast or something that you do. Sure, that'll help, but if you don't bake these into your lifestyle and have non-negotiables, being barefoot, being in the sun, getting proper sleep and really dialing in your lifestyle, then it's probably going to come back. Getting off alcohol, for example, sugar feeds fungus. Alcohol is sugar, what that does to your liver. So it's cute. You can do that when you're 20s and stay up all night and do coke and party, but later on that's going to catch up to you. And I see that. So people used to call me 20 years ago when I started Certified Health Nut, and they used to say, hey, my mother, brother, uncle has cancer. What do you have for it? I was working in the Amazon for it. People are like, what kind of magic pill do you have for that? And I'm like, I mean, cancer is a lifestyle overhaul, and you calling for your parent or uncle doesn't work. They have to want to change their life themselves.
Exactly right.
And there is no pill. But what I would tell those people is change your life now. Don't be a statistic later on. I get too many of these phone calls. Please change your life. Please adhere to that. And people make fun of me, Certified Health Nut. Ha ha ha. You know, he's into a bunch of weird stuff. Well, as I'm approaching 60, now I get the calls from my friends and my peers. And that's sad. I have cancer. I have this problem. I have that problem. What do you have to restore that? Well, I have a lifestyle overhaul. And by that time, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So, I mean, look at you. You are living a healthy lifestyle, right? It's baked into your consciousness, your non-negotiables. It's probably baked into your family, et cetera. And this is just the way you live.
That's right. With no, you know, I think sometimes people, when they think about health stuff, they're like, oh, I don't want to be a problem. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be, like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to seem like the weird one. And like, when it's that important to you, you don't give a shit what anyone thinks. You're like, I really don't care that I say that there needs to be 4 dozen eggs in the fridge at all times. I don't care that I have to go get my meat at this place. I don't care that I'm gonna make a fuss because I'm not just gonna eat pizza. That's not a meal to me. Like, I'm not gonna. I care what water I drink. It all matters. Like, because it's all hard anyway. So if you don't care all the time, you're screwed because you're already having to struggle even if you care all the time. It's still an effort.
Well, it's baked into my lifestyle, so it's not really a thing. You know? I go to the gym every day because it gets my serotonin and dopamine up, and because of the frequencies that are all around and just the stress for finances and everything. I wake up, I have my own, psychological issues. I get to the gym every day. That builds my serotonin and dopamine. Then I'm ready to rock.
Testosterone.
I'm ready to rock and roll all day. Right? I have that clarity. I can take care of my children. I can move my ideas forward in the marketplace. I can get out there and get on the media and present. You were asking a little bit before, how are we going to change this world? Well, I always like to look at the Kardashian playbook, right? Sex sells. It's not going away anytime ever.
I mean, I'm somewhat guilty of that. I get it. It works.
Hey, and
you were a model.
And we're in front of the camera?
Right.
Yes, life can be lived
But how far are you going to take
way.
that? How far are you going to take that?
As far as?
No, meaning the Kardashians took it pretty far, right? I mean, when you think about sex sells, there's a threshold for what's appropriate. The thing is, you have to keep one-upping yourself.
Right, and they're also using synthetics, right? I'm using natural. I mean, people like to make clickbait out of me drinking my own urine and slapping my balls and practicing sexual kung fu and butthole sunning, but that's my lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? I like to be a naked animal in nature, When
you're 150 years old, they're all going to be dead. I want to live to 120. I think you might hit 150.
If they're going to do it in the opposite way and get, fake boobs, fake lips, tons of makeup and synthetic clothing and all this stuff, and they can do that, then I can do the opposite.
Sure.
Right? I have nice wool clothing and linens and natural fiber clothing and natural food and this is what it looks like, right? And my hormones are good, right? I live in the same stressed out world that everyone else does. We've got 50% lower testosterone in the last 50 years.
Shocking.
Right. And so at one level or another, that statistic does affect me. However, I'm here to say that you can live a natural lifestyle. I have a certain level of musculature and spark in my skin and virility in my step. If I can do it, you can do it. And if we all start to do it, then we will have the ability. I heard a metric the other day. If we all stop buying Coca-Cola, within 2 days, they'd be bankrupt. But we're all programmed unconsciously, just take it off the shelf. We can change the world in a blink of an eye. And so if you want to be healthy, if you want to have spark in your eyes, if you want to have energy, if you want to pick up your children, your grandchildren, if you want to feel good in the body without neck pain and back pain, right? If you want to run up the mountain, if you want to go into the streams and feel good, you can. I'm here to tell you, you can. Even if you're sick right now and you're not feeling well, you can reverse that and live a primal lifestyle.
It seems like, going back to the question of how do you motivate people to wake up? It seems like, because everyone wants to be healthy.
Sex sells. Yeah, but how many people are healthy?
So trying to inspire them to just who gives a shit about anything else going on in the world? Just just get healthy. That's it. Because the thing is the way you treat yourself is the way you treat the outside world. It's always a mirror. And so as soon as you start caring about this, you start caring about that. They're equal and opposite.
Well, and sex sells. So all the commercial conduits are if you don't brush with this particular toothpaste, then you're not gonna get the girl. It's all implied. I did television advertising for Cadillac and water companies. Right.
If you buy this car, you'll get the girl. Right.
Right. It's all implied. I was the James Bond style guy in the car commercials, and so it's all implied. So I'm here to tell you, life is much better when you're healthy and musculature and you feel good and your skin looks good and you don't have back pain and neck pain and life is friggin' magical.
Well, it starts to get into sort of a sovereign existence where you're not so triggered, you don't need something else to make you feel good, you know how to do it yourself. And I think that from a young age, children are essentially programmed to abandon themselves, right? To stay in the household, to be fed, to survive, to emotionally be able to cope. And they also energetically, I think parents lie to their kids all the time, not because they think that it's a bad thing, but they think they're protecting them. They're like, oh, Mom, are you okay? And then she's like, I'm fine. It's like the kid can tell you're not okay. Don't lie to your kid. You're messing with that child's ability to be able to sense energy and trust it. It's like if we can just like get kids to, if we can just be honest with kids and help them stay sovereign in their own energy and their own understanding of what's going on around them, then I think that we raise an entirely different generation that stays connected to themselves. And when you stay connected to yourself, you care because you can tell when you don't feel good. And I think for me, people have asked about like my own just evolution, and I talk about how did I do what I did in racing and judgment and media. I wasn't that connected to myself. I really wasn't that connected emotionally. So I have a lot of conditioning to understand why people do what they do now, and I didn't have that then, so I had to just be disconnected because it would have hurt too much. So I've like gone through this iteration after racing to like learning how to feel my feelings, how to feel my own energy and where it lands and what's going on in my body, because I had to turn it off. How would we just never turn it off? That's what we do. It's always on, and then it gets turned off at some point in time. I think we live in a different world if we do that.
Good job. Most people don't do that. Good job.
Yeah.
The fact that you got back in touch with yourself?
Yeah. And it's not easy.
And that you're healthy?
It's not easy.
After being in the commercial, businesses that you've been in?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it can be done.
Yeah.
Right?
And then it's not to even look at the past and be mad about it. It's like, look, that was the phase I was in.
Yeah.
It's like, I have a season for that. And I'm like, okay, great. That's okay. It totally served me. Being disconnected in that way or having that trauma that ignited me in this way, this lifestyle, like it served me. I achieved great things. I did a 4-minute mile for in my own way. Like, fine. And now it's time for a new one. And everyone has that opportunity to be in a new one. Yep. You just have to make a choice. I love the expression, you're always one choice away from an entirely different life.
Yes. And your curse is your gift. I like to say that as well.
Very much.
You are proving to other people what is possible. And I don't think that there's anything impossible. Especially, that's why I'm calling forth free energy.
Yeah.
Dream the impossible dream. Again, whatever's not nature and that you can see from planes and cars and McLarens and Corvettes and all that was made in the mind of man.
That's right. That's right. I think about your businesses that you've created, or think about products. I think about it for myself. I'm like, that was just an idea. Thoughts become things.
That's correct. Well, and mind is an embodied process. We are the sum total of all of our ideas. So I like to use the metric now that gene testing and blood testing is like all the rage, so they can sell you all these other drugs and stuff. Not that they don't have application, but hey, whatever happened to the mirror? Whatever happened to the toilet bowl? How about using that as a metric? Do you like what you see in the mirror? If not, you can change it. Right? For me, those are the best metrics. I see a lot of gimmicks out there on the internet. Gadgets, gimmicks.
Do you not agree with hormone testing and blood testing and different things like that?
I think it's unnecessary if you are aligning with the circadian rhythms. If you are getting, let's say this, start at the fundamental principles. I have 9 pillars of health in my book. Start there. Those are all non-negotiables. So do you have the lifestyle or do you need the drugs? Don't get me wrong, the drugs work. Again, back to the side effects or the toxic effects on the human body. What are the toxic effects? And I've talked to many men that have been on TRT long-term, tried to get off them, don't like the aggression. Everyone's going to react differently to them. But are you drilling down to bedrock on your circadian rhythms? 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is optimal. And then the Chinese like to say any hour before 12 is like 2. So if you really need to restore the body or you're on...
what does that mean? Any hour before 12 is like 2?
Like 2 hours of sleep. Right? The Chinese clock, right? If you're waking up at 2, that's usually your liver.
Oh, okay.
Right? There's, psychological rest is from like 10 to 2, and physical rest, I think, is from 2 to 6 p.m. A lot of research on sleep. 2
to 6 a.m.?
Yes. There's a lot of research on sleep. You can easily look it up. And now with sleep studies, you can get an Oura ring and figure out, how well you're sleeping, whether you're a mouth breather. Oxygen is so important. It's the first form of nutrition next to the sunlight. And so it's a good idea to reprogram your breathing mechanics, and that your breathing and your guts and your hormones are all working. So breathing is another fundamental principle that I teach in
Here
my
they are,
9 pillars.
the 9 pillars. It starts with the legacy. Is that the first one here?
Yes, purpose
Legacy.
is the most important. That can drive everything else. So
Sure.
what the heart desires, not the head and how it's going to monetize it, what the heart desires.
That's so hard for people.
Of course it is. But I found it very easy in my coaching and my programs, because people will just like, what do you love? Well, when I was a kid, and I did it. If you get them talking, they'll tell you exactly what they love. Well, what's your nightmare?
Exactly.
Well, I'm afraid of this and that. I'm losing my kids and being destitute and loneliness. Okay. And then we just flip all that stuff around, and you're like, this is what I just heard come out of your heart.
Yeah.
Monetizing that, in the modern world, we'll have to do a little bit of dance. But if you just follow the heart, don't quit your day gig. Follow
Side
your
hustle,
heart.
start it up.
Right, exactly. And we can create.
People don't dream. They just don't. And I think that our system puts us in that place from most of the time college, I think. Putting you into debt, basically. And then you get stuck in a rut of having to make money to pay for life because you still want to live and do fun things, but you don't have the ability to have nothing, and then you're in debt, and like you just get put on a hamster wheel. I think college, it's Charlie Kirk that wrote the book, Charlie's College Scam, right? I just think it's a big, I didn't go to college. I have a GED. So, that's my literal,
High five.
Thanks.
I got a GED too.
Hell yeah.
I was incarcerated as a youth.
I don't think that anyone would ever wonder if you are smart or not. You speak so intelligently and have such knowledge. What were you incarcerated for?
Selling drugs to survive on the street. I've been on my own since I was 14.
Oh my God.
And so my parents got into a little bit of challenges with the FBI as well. And so I just did whatever it took. What was your come
to Jesus moment? What was your breaking point? Because this is one of the other things that I was going to say, as far as how do you get people to wake up? I wonder if it takes that break to do it.
Yeah, Joe Rogan talks about his most talented friends had the most fucked up childhoods. So your curse is your gift, right? Mm-hmm. How do you wake up a human being? I like to say it's like the concrete on the shoot of grass. You can't kill the human spirit. Mm-hmm. So what you're seeing in Appalachia right now, again, that human spirit is coming.
Waking up, was there an awakening experience, or was there just sort of like a mission that led you down this road?
Well, I think I have come to Jesus moments all the time, right? And the question is are we listening? So when I was younger and I was out on the street and I was surviving, I think I was selling LSD at concerts back in the 80s. It was just my way of surviving. And I remember I was on LSD at a Journey concert in Oakland.
Sounds like a good match.
And I just realized that I just wasn't going to crawl underneath a rock and die. And so it was all about living. So that was one of the realizations that I had. Then when I started modeling, I thought, oh, hey, here's a good career. Got out of college. Well, I got my GED, and then I went back to high school because I was only 18 when I got out of juvenile hall. Luckily, I got arrested before I was 18. Got out, finished high school, and then and I got kicked out of every school I went to before that. I've just defied authority, always. Paul Chek's a 9th grade dropout as well, and he's read thousands of books. And so I went, and then I signed up for college, and then one of my friends had financial aid, and I was like, how'd you get financial aid? Because you had parents, right? And he's like, well, my parents moved away and when I was a senior. And so I went down and I got financial aid, and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And so I went to school, totally supported. I didn't know that financial aid existed. And so I got an education for a while, but I quit that to do modeling. And then I took my collegiate spirit and wanted to do good in that industry. I wanted to look and feel my best, do some campaigns, make some money, make a career for myself. And early on, I had digestive problems and I was bloating, and I knew nothing about nutrition or anything. And that's what started my 35-year journey of my own health, healing, digestion, nutrition, et cetera, fasting, herbalism. And so so that was a catalyst and awakening. Then I got into drugs and alcohol and partying extensively, and I had some success with the Versace campaigns as well. And then I had to clean up my life from drugs and alcohol because that was a dead end road. And then from there, I found meditation, and then shamanism and working with the Indians, ayahuasca, and then I had a family, and that has a whole set of challenges, right?
That's its own ceremony every day.
Oh, correct. And I
don't have kids, but I can imagine.
And how about business?
Sure.
Right? That's another
humbling experience.
It's a spiritual journey.
There are plenty of very, very successful people that weren't believed that they didn't have a good product or didn't have a good company, and they ended up proving them wrong. These things take attrition, they take belief.
They take curveballs. Curveballs. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so, so these are, I keep having come to Jesus moments, and then
it's good. It means you're open.
Yeah, and at my age, I keep coming back. I am the creator of my universe. So if something's not working, I have to take responsibility right here. And my children are 13 and 17 right now, and I've spent every day with them since they were born.
I have this theory that every parent's going to essentially screw them up a little bit. Like you love them too much, you love them too little. That's what I always say. Like something's going to happen. Like how are they going to find themselves, find their confidence, have sovereignty, and navigate out of sticky spots when it comes to programming?
So number one is keep them off the devices as much as possible. And they were Waldorf children that had no access to devices until lockdowns. And then they had 6 hours of Zoom, and I bought a new iMac, and I was like, holy shit, I am paying private school prices in Los Angeles, and they went from 0 media to 6 hours. I was like, this is not cool. That's when I took them to Sedona, got them into school with no masks. My former partner and I had some challenges, and she decided to get them telephones.
Just like after you split up, and then when they'd go there, they'd have a phone, and then
you knew that it would
piss you off.
Piss me off. And then also, what level of the matrix are we in? I pride myself in being as much, let's say, I live in the matrix, so I still have to use 10% of it. I have cars and phones myself.
Sure.
But I want my children off the devices as much as possible. If the executives, according to that Netflix, was it Social Dilemma?
Yeah, have their kids off of them.
YouTube, Facebook, Apple, no iPads, no iPhones, no social media. Okay, good. Because the mind stores information in images, and we're highly suggestible, highly programmable, back to the frequency that's addicting you, right? The slot machine frequency, dopamine hit. And so we're glued to the phone. What does this do to your posture? This is an orthopedic calamity. This is aging. I don't care. I'm saving my children. And then
they're not supposed to be your friend.
I agree. And
they should kind of hate you a little bit. I think that.
Yeah, I mean, I love my children,
yeah.
and
sure they love you back, but
yeah,
you're not supposed to be the fun dad.
I'm a dictator, and I rule with an iron fist. Because here's the thing: what I tell you, give me the phone, do your chores. I don't want to hear any bullshit, tough shit. Why? Because when you get out into the real world, it's tough shit everywhere.
Exactly. So think about the day and age that we're in these days with mental health and anxiety. It's like an epidemic.
Yeah. Get outside, walk your dog. Here's a bicycle. Remember bicycles?
Life's hard, get a helmet. I love that.
I mean, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s on a lake in Andover, Connecticut. And it was like, I had a bike.
Yeah, it was called a car when you were younger, man. You could do anything.
Yeah. And so
love those memes where it shows when kids used to hang out and it was just like bikes all like falling into each other on the front yard. Like this used to be like how you hung out as kids, how you got together. And now it's people just doing this with their phone.
Oh no. No.
It's a different connection.
Yeah. And so I'm doing my best to subjugate that in the modern world. And my son plays hockey. And I said, you can have your dreams or he's destined for the NHL. Mm. You can have your dreams or you can have your bullshit, but you can't have both. And part of the bullshit, part of bullshit is that fucking phone in your hand and your shitty posture while you're using it. So
shit, I think about that as a girl when I use it. I'm like, oh, necklines. Let's just lengthen this out. Shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I sleep with my pillow like this to try and.
I get on the Swiss ball and I put on
the,
my blue blockers and I'm like,
turn on the frequency.
get out into nature, get grounded. I mean,
Get weird.
Well, we've got all the, fire is represented. And if you have too much fire, right, you got fire and ice, you got yin and yang. If you have too much yang, you're going to yang yourself out to dry. If you're overtraining, undersleeping, which is yin, right, you're drinking too much caffeine, this is going to burn yourself.
Don't think that I'm this way because I've done it all right forever. Definitely not.
Well, you exemplify plenty of balance. So with my kids, I'm just get as much balance as you can, but trying to get them outside, especially in this heat, has been a little bit intense. But my daughter loves ballet and my son loves hockey. And so, and my daughter doesn't have access to her phone. I took it away the other day and somehow she keeps getting it back, but I hide it pretty good. And she's like, Dad, when am I going to get my phone? Never.
It's probably because she's using someone else's phone to find her phone. I just watched this the other day. You can literally like find your phone and it sends like a tone so they can find it. Try and look for that.
Okay.
See if somebody's letting her like do find a phone.
I'm trying to turn the things off and get away from it. But for the most part, I even try and leave it at home so it's not even with me. And then I ride my bicycle to the gym.
Yeah. A couple hours of freedom.
I just try and be as analog as I possibly can in this digital world.
We keep going through these 9 pillars here. Food, which we've talked about, rest, we've talked about, movement. And I think one of the things interesting I saw the other day on social was you were just demoing like a Qigong movement, and it like is a body alignment from like the whole body. And what is that? And like, I just think that's fascinating. I actually started doing it in front of the red light the other day because I additionally do red light. I was like, wow, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
But like Chinese medicine seems like something that's so tried and true for just thousands of years.
Yeah, medical Qigong's old. And I think the written record is 3,000 to 5,000 years old. Yoga and Qigong in Chinese medicine and Ayurveda as well. And so the Indians and the Chinese kind of figured a few things out. And so qi means energy, or my interpretation of it is qi means energy and gong means practice. So it's an energy cultivation practice. And the one Zen swing move that I had dumbs it down and makes it completely simple. I like to say the antidote for complexity, as we've created in the world today, is always simplicity. And so, and again, back to the 3 hours of Huberman Labs, like, I need all this scientific data just to figure out my sleep or movement patterns. And it's like, no, walking's the best exercise for the human body if we just walk and have a good walking practice.
I agree.
And if you don't have time for that, you can do the Zen swing because it moves every joint in the body. It moves the cerebral spinal fluid, the synovial fluid, the fascia, the ligaments, the tendons, which are very important as we age. And I've had to learn that. Overtraining doesn't work. Doing burpees and all these, deadlifts and squats, I love them. But
one time I did 500 burpees for time just because I didn't want to think of another movement. Yeah, that was back in the day.
Yeah, and that's a high performance athletic activity. Right? Not everybody has the biomechanics. I'm sure you can
tell this about my personality. I like difficult things.
Yes.
Why not?
Yeah.
But less is more when it comes to fitness, for sure.
Well, yeah.
I wonder, I literally lift weights 3 times a week for 1 hour. And then I just walk, generally, like when I have time. Or because I need to go somewhere.
Yeah, I love walking. I'm more of a bike guy now just because I can get more ground clearance.
Yeah.
But we usually walk every night.
Love that.
With a dog.
And
so, and when I was living in New York, and it's in the book as well,
Yeah.
we were in Miami hanging out, everybody's drinking, and I went to New York to work for the summer, and one of my friends was up there, and she lost 20, 30 pounds and a bunch of inflammation. I was like, "You've been going to the gym?" She's like, "No, I just walk everywhere, 100%. Subway, bus."
Well, because it also lowers blood sugar. It's a relaxing action. So it gets the whole body moving, gets the blood pumping, but it doesn't stress the body either. And so that was what I was queen of doing. I was queen of stressing the body. I was like, if I went and walked the dogs, I would go, I'll just take them off leash and I'll just do some interval sprinting. That was my walk. So
de-stressing exercise. I also like to say exercise is a necessity, not a luxury. And the purpose of exercise is to move the lymphatic fluid. So
Damn
back to the
right.
Chinese, what do they want? They want blood flow, chi flow, and lymph flow, circulation.
I fell into that sort of like trap for a little while. I got breast implants when I was 32 or something, 32. And they ended up making me sick. And it was sort of like a 10-year thing. And it got, the first few years wasn't so noticeable. Then every year got worse and worse and worse until I had them out at 7.5 years. And then it probably took 2 years to really get back on track. And one of the main components that I had to do was lymphatic movement, lymphatic massage, fascia work, then just like lymph massage, which is much lighter. I took naps during that. It was lovely.
Good for you.
But I still do lymph work now. I mean, I stand in front of the red light and I do gua sha. But I do gua sha to like here. Like I start here and I go all the way down and underneath my armpits, and then I do like a quick overall, like the 6, right? Here, 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 stomach, inside the groin, behind the knees. And then I just kind of like get them all moving. But I still do that almost every day.
With a skin brush or a...
No, just my hands. Just like rubbing on it and then slapping.
And tapping too.
And then just kind of like draining in the right direction.
Oh, great. Nice.
Yeah. But lymph work is so important. I agree with that.
Yeah, I like to do a lot of tapping.
Yeah.
Qigong.
You can feel it. Like you can actually feel like the shoot, like the energy shooting in directions, like when you do it. It's not like touching your arm. It's like when you touch like a lymph spot, it's like a different feeling. Yeah.
Well, you become pretty sensitive over it. I do a lot of that intuitively. And I have a lady here in town. Big shout out to AccuHealth. It's Robert. He's an amazing acupuncturist, and Annie Naylor. She is my myofascial massage person, and they have a lymph wizard over there. And Robert is connected to the guy I think who runs Honor Health.
Wow, that's huge.
They were, I think they were in a punk band in New York many years ago, and so he has been hired to bring the acupuncture into like an eastern side of the Western medicine at Banner Health, and then and they get a lot of referrals for cancer. If people don't know, Phoenix is a bit of a medical destination place. Yeah. Mayo clinics here, et cetera. Yep. And so he gets a lot of overflow from that. And Melanie is the lymphatic specialist. She comes from Eastern Europe, and she works with a lot of...
Think about how much drugs get pumped into you when you're going through courses of chemo or different things like that. I mean, getting the body to pump that out and getting the system pumping again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's most of what my exercise is about at 60, is just to make sure that I'm pumping. I do like to lift weights as well. I was doing some deadlifts today, but I'm doing like 2 sets of 10 and not too heavy weight. Yeah. I had black mold exposure and subsequent autoimmune fibromyalgia type stuff. So
that shit is gnarly. Mold, metals. I had both too.
I just got to watch it. And congratulations for doing the boobs. And I help coach a lot of women on that as well, and explants. And, people don't want to question it. I was having neck pain and autoimmune. And I'm like, have you checked the boobs? And I'm like, not the boobs.
I mean, I had gut issues, dysbiosis, leaky gut. I was sensitive to everything. My hair stopped growing, weight gain. Like I had a lot of weight gain. Oh my God. Hormones were bottomed out.
Thoracic outlet syndrome.
Cortisol. I don't even know what that is, but I'm sure I had it. Cortisol was flipped. It was spiking in the middle of the night. I'm sure there was some. I've read a lot about adrenal fatigue, but it sure felt like it. Like recovery was nothing. Like it took 2 days to recover from a workout. Like that shouldn't require any. It was terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah, and I think we go through this as a catalyst to help other people know that there is another way.
That's right.
And so if I can heal from autoimmune, you can heal from it, then we all can.
Yeah, I love that. All right, we've got breath, which, just taking a deep breath changes everything. Mm-hmm.
I like to reprogram my clients' breathing mechanics, because a lot of us get into neck breathing and mouth breathing as life goes on. We get stressed. We hold our emotions, even from our childhood, our neck, fall asleep at night. My mouth wakes up dry and stuff like that. So I have dental appliances. I tape my mouth shut sometimes. But
how do you do that with a mustache and beard?
I get a thin piece. Just put it here. And It works. It's I don't like taping it up as much,
Yeah.
but I make sure that my exercises. I have some bird exercises for qigong. So I've got the stork walk and fly like an eagle. So open up the diaphragm, inhale, exhale.
So by opening up the diaphragm, do you mean breathing through your belly, like breathing in, or breathing out?
You fill up
breathing
the
out,
belly, breathing
out through your belly.
And because of all the Vogue magazines and the six-pack abs, people want to hold their
That's right.
abs. And it's actually the opposite.
Relax them, release them.
And so I have a move that I teach in my courses called the stork walk, and it reprograms the diaphragm, and so that we optimize our breathing pattern.
I heard a long time ago that when you belly breathe, you get your body in a parasympathetic.
Yes.
And I think it was Nicole LaPera, holistic psychologist here. I think she, in an interview with her years and years ago, she said that. And so since then I worked on, like, I belly breathe now. Like when I sit here, I was like, oh yeah, I just breathe out through my inhale is a belly out move.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I breathe now. Mm-hmm. And that's how babies breathe too.
Correct.
And then we do this.
Yeah. Yeah. We get deprogrammed and reprogrammed negatively.
Thought, relationship, water, nature, all these things, they make perfect sense why they're the most important. What do you think is the most important of the 9?
The legacy, the purpose. Because if we don't have purpose, anywhere will do. And what you see in the world today is just purposeless people going around in circles. And I was there, so I know, right? I was chasing paper, right? Out of college. Gee, what do I do for money?
Yep.
I don't know who I am or what I'm doing. Money, just show me the money. Where's the money? I don't want to be working. I didn't know what I wanted, but I was like, I'm so glad I got a job that was freelance and outside and in Miami and in LA. And I want to be outside all the time.
Yeah. What's the question you ask to figure out what it is that's your legacy? What's a very direct, simple question that people can ask themselves to inspire this? I've
got 3 really good exercises, but the most important one is write your eulogy, right? Your best friend, God forbid your mother or your parent, this is the life my son or my daughter lived. Came, saw, conquered, put the flag on top of Mount Everest, and lived great, right? That's the way you want to think. Dream the impossible dream. Like, what do you want to do? You want to climb Mount Everest? You want to run a marathon? You want to have children? Well, I postulate, because we've gotten so far inverted, right? Having children, especially if you're a mother, because do you have children? Okay. So that procreation is prime directive. Having children, and I'm here to tell you that it was one of the best experiences of my life. It's still unfolding. And so, we farmed them out to nannies, all the feminism, all that stuff. Separated the family. There's nothing more important than children. I raised my children as Mr. Mom. And I'll tell you one thing, hormonally, it broke me. And at the end of the day, the kids didn't give a rat's ass, because when Mom came, they just wanted her. Right? And I interview. I've got interviews with a lot of women over the years on my platform. And they said, yeah, I bit the cookie, and a better manager and better money. And I wish I could just have that money back, that time back to spend with my children. Family first, and the children need mom. And mom is the natural nurturer. She knows how to feed and nourish and nurture the children. And she hormonally has the energy. It would drive me crazy making, food for the kids and making sure they're okay. My objective was to get them out into nature, because I would watch them play with sand or rocks and sticks for hours. If you just get them in the park, if you keep them in the house and you try and do some work, they'll drive you crazy.
Give them something to do.
If you get them outside, into nature, into the grass, into the beach, into the sand, they will play for hours, no complaints, happy.
True.
And so
they need something inside. Outside, it's right there.
Correct. And we've gotten so far away from that. You don't see kids playing out in the street anymore. And
given the fact that you're an herbalist, and I was going to go through all kinds of different things that we need to cure ailments or to upregulate in some ways, maybe we'll finish off with a fun one. In this day and age where they say overpopulation is an issue, no. We're going to go extinct at this rate, because fertility's down, testosterone's down, people are having less kids, people are having them later, hence the advent of IVF and all the treatments that it takes to get what you want. So what, as an herbalist, would you recommend for someone who, for a man and a woman to increase their likelihood of making a child?
So herbalism, I'd like to go back to the fundamental principles in the 9 pillars in my book. But herbalism, I would say maca is excellent.
For both?
Correct. Also suma and muipuama, known as potency wood. Those are all Amazonian. We used to have a formula with all 3 of those in there, and it was amazing. Gives you good muscles. Suma is known as the Russian secret. It mimics anabolic steroids.
Wow.
So suma, maca, muipuama, and you want to rotate those as well. But you're not going to get your testosterone directly from that. You're going to get your testosterone, your androgens, from lowering stress levels. And if you're dealing with chronic elevated cortisol, the sex hormones don't come out and play if you got to fight and flight, right? You're not trying to pop a boner when you're, fighting for your life. And that's chronic elevated cortisol, poor sleep, electromagnetic radiation and pollution, discordant energy fields in your sleeping area, darken your room when you go to sleep, get to sleep with the celestial realm. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is a good marker. If you can do before 10 p.m., it's even better. You're going to restore more sleep. After you had your breast removed, you dealt with autoimmune. What did you say? Rest. Like rest is critical.
Yeah. Do less. I had to rest. And my body knew what to do. If I gave it the right environment, someone had said those words. They're like, your body knows what to do if you give it the right environment. And I was like, okay, yes. Take it easy. It knows how to heal.
So you want your testosterone to come out as a man? Make sure you got good rest. You're not just hustle, grind, overtraining, over-caffeinated, poor nutrition, or organic doesn't mean anything. Water's too confusing. It's a symphony, right? Yep. It's putting it all together. Lower stress levels, harmonize your hormones. Obviously going to the gym can help, but again, look in the mirror. Do you have premature aging? Is your hair graying? Is it falling out prematurely? Do you have excess wrinkles? Are you doing your lymphatic drainage? Are you getting into the sauna? Do you have good detoxification pathways? So the book has 9 pillars of health, 7 factors of stress that destroy health, and 5 detoxification pathways that restore health. And so when you're optimizing those, you can live more in balance. And we live in a toxic world. So one of the 7 factors of stress is chemical stress. There's billions of pounds of toxic compounds pumped into the environment every single year since the dawn of the industrial age. We just had an explosion in Georgia of a chemical plant. They make pool supplies. And that's, how about all the chlorine pools here in the desert? Right. People used to move here because of asthma and lung issues. And now there's just as much moisture in the air because of all the pools. And the pools have chlorine in them. That you're breathing that in the atmosphere. Whatever's coming out of the plains we're breathing in.
I mean, I even think to this day and age of how, how many people are transitioning or having, identification issues or sexual orientation, curiosity, and how there's studies on taking fish and making fish men into women fish, like with literally
atrazine.
Exactly. Like, I wonder how much is
by design.
Out
vaccines, RFK. The research is there.
Just not natural is what I'm saying. I'm making a point about the situation not being natural.
Well, and if we're injecting ourselves with poisons that we don't have long-term data on, then we are the lab rats.
So I'm curious, what do you think the outcome will be with all the injections and jabs that people got? Do you think that this is a very dangerous trajectory for?
Well, I work with Dr. Edward Group, or let's just say we are friends and colleagues. He called me recently. He owns the website urinetherapy.com, and he's got plenty of other websites and good product. He worked for Donald Trump during the first administration, and he was on a task force, and RFK was on that task force as well until Bill Gates came and met with Trump, and I think it was all disbanded. So Dr. Edward Group called me, and he said that they're seeing hydrogels in people's blood, like neon blue.
congealed something.
Congealed nanotechnology, whatever.
Nanotechnology.
And
Great.
the other thing that he said was that they are witnessing synthetic red blood cells now. And the weird thing is that because we share knowledge around the urine therapy, he said that the urine therapy, because it has stem cells, and I don't advocate people to do urine therapy. I only talk about my 20-year experience. He says that urine therapy, or Shivambu, appears to be the only antidote to this nanobot synthetic world that they're trying to bring on, because that's where the stem cells are.
Well, all you have to do is package it, is it will make your skin look like yours, make it look bright, young. It's like natural Botox, and people will be like, sure. If you tell them this will like clean your liver out, they'll be like, screw you.
Back to sex sells in the Kardashian playbook.
Exactly.
Real beauty comes from, real sex and beauty is going to come from having a natural, vital body and life.
Yeah.
You're gonna, if your children are healthy now, they're gonna be savages. If they can think for themselves, they're gonna be savages in this new world that we're creating. And so,
Amen. Well, thank you for sharing and having a very strong vision that you hold to. I could feel that at the very beginning, is that you have this very strong constitution to that vision, and it guides you every day. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you. I'm expecting miracles.
Then they'll happen.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.